Ranking member is recognized for a unanimous consent request.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Chairman. And this just goes to the question of the hypothetical witness at the trial that didn't happen. New York Times, May 1, 2024, Trump acknowledges he wanted to go to the Capitol on January 6th.
Without objection.
Carol Leonnig, who you quoted, Carol Leonnig outlines Tony Ornato's history of lies. That's June 30, 2022.
Objection.
In July 1, 2022, the men disputing Hutchinson's testimony are two of Trump's biggest acolytes. And finally, June 29, 2022, CNN, Cassidy Hutchinson stands by her testimony amid pushback. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, over the past few years, Republicans have waged constant attacks on you. Donald Trump has said you are totally compromised, a political hitman, a left-wing radical, a criminal, a fully weaponized monster, and that you should be considered mentally deranged and thrown out of the country. Just this week, he called you a sick bastard. Unfortunately, the rules of decorum prevent me from saying what I think of Donald Trump. But he is not the only one to launch attacks against you. Chairman Jordan has accused you of abusive surveillance and accused you and your team of partisan and politically motivated prosecutions. Despite the mountain of evidence that you laid out in the special counsel's report and in your court filings, President Trump's supporters are convinced that the only reason your team tried to hold him accountable is because you have a vendetta against him. I want to address these allegations today. You have had a long and distinguished career with the Justice Department, including serving as the chief of DOJ's Public Integrity Section for 5 years. While leading the Public Integrity Section, you led investigations and prosecution of public figures and political leaders from both parties, Republicans and Democrats. Can you give us a couple of examples?
Sorry about that. During my time as the chief of public integrity, I investigated cases involving both Republicans and Democrats. The standard in all of those cases was the same: follow the facts and the law. Didn't matter what party you were in, it mattered the facts of the case. In doing that, there were cases I brought against Democrats and cases I brought against Republicans. There were also cases that I investigated and did not bring against Democrats and Republicans. Party affiliation played no role in my investigations. I can think of multiple cases of prominent members of Congress that we investigated who were Republicans who, upon reviewing the law and the facts, I decided not to go forward in those cases. And the same could be said with people on the Democratic side. I've always tried to follow the facts and the law in my career.
When it comes to deciding whether to pursue a criminal prosecution of an individual, what factors do you consider?
The primary factors are the facts and the law. As a federal prosecutor, in making a prosecutorial decision, you're guided by the federal principles of prosecution, which guide one not only to look at the facts and the law, but the federal interests. And that is exactly what we did in this case, as set forth in my final report.
Does partisan politics play a role in your decision whether or not to prosecute someone?
None.
To be clear, did partisan politics play a role in your decision to charge Donald Trump?
It did not.
What does it do to the justice system if political leaders place pressure on prosecutors to file charges against their political enemies? What are the implications if prosecution decisions are based on politics, not the law?
I think it weakens the rule of law in our country because it weakens the mechanism for us to prosecute, among other things, corruption. When there is political prosecutions targeting people because they're enemies of the president, the department loses credibility and it can't do its job in all sorts of cases.
According to your deposition before this committee, it sounds like your problem was not determining if you had enough evidence to charge Donald Trump, but rather that you might have had too much evidence and struggled to determine how to present a clear narrative to a jury. How would you characterize the evidence against Mr. Trump about inciting an insurrection against the laws of this country? Did you have too much?
Well, With respect to presenting the case that we charged, one of the central challenges was trying to present that in a concise way because we did have so many witnesses. Some of the most powerful witnesses were witnesses who, in fact, were fellow Republicans who had voted for Donald Trump, who had campaigned for him, and who wanted him to win the election. These included state officials, people who worked on his campaign, and advisors. I will say, however, with respect to the charge of insurrection, we did not charge that. As I set forth in my report, well, I believe that there is, courts have found that that was an insurrection and that there's a reasonable interpretation, a reasonable prosecutor could interpret the evidence to support that charge. I chose not to do that, looking at the facts in the law. I thought the charges we brought were appropriate, given the evidence that we had.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your decades-long public service and for working tirelessly to uphold the rule of law. Those who attack and smear you and your team in order to protect Donald Trump should be ashamed of themselves. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Smith, do you see criminals to my left? You don't see any. Do you see people who are committing crimes because they continue to believe things that just aren't true? That's paraphrasing Ronald Reagan, that liberals aren't stupid, they just know things that don't happen to be true. If the president believed that he was cheated in an election, that there was fraud, or in some other way a number of items led to his defeat, when in fact he should have won according to the Constitution, does that make him a criminal?
Sir,
No, that's a yes or no, please, Mr. Smith. These people here are continuing to grapple constantly with things that aren't true, like socialism works, or that somehow everything the Republicans do is evil and everything they do is right. They've never reached a conclusion in a typical partisan case in which we're not evil because we think something different and we're not wrong. You understand the Constitution. Do you understand the Bill of Rights, that someone has the absolute right to believe something, whether it's true or not, and to advocate for something, whether it's true or not? Do you understand that in addition to your oath to the Constitution, that that's one of the things the First Amendment allows for, isn't it?
yes, sir.
Okay, so if you know that people have a right to opine, lobby for, assert, do everything they can legally to ask for people to make different decisions, then why is it you saw criminal conduct on behalf of a president who believed he didn't win? Chairman Jordan and myself have something in common along with a number of others here. We saw wrongdoing, and on January 6th, we voted not to confirm 2 states because they had violated the U.S. Constitution in how they selected who got ballots. And yet, you're going to come here and say, oh, I just followed the law. When you went after these people and you said, well, technically I can do that, you didn't see any selective nature or any separation of powers under the Constitution to spying on the activities and the conversations of the Speaker of the House? To what end would conversations between the Speaker of the U.S. House, third or second in line to be the president, and the president, in what basis would it be any of your business other than you believe that there was a conspiracy without conspiracy as a basic premise? You, like the president's men for Richard Nixon, went after your political enemies. Maybe they're not your political enemies, but they sure as hell were Joe Biden's political enemies, weren't they? They were Harris's political enemies. They were the enemies of the president, and you were their arm, weren't you?
No.
No. Oh, great. So you spied on the Speaker of the House and these other senators and so on, and informed no one, and in fact put in a gag order so they couldn't discover it. If they were not subjects of a conspiracy investigation, why did Congress, a separate branch that you under the Constitution, have to respect. Why is it that no one should be informed, including the judges? As you went in to spy on these people, did you mention that you were spying on seeking records so you could find out about when conversations occurred between the U.S. Speaker of the House and the President? Did you inform the judge, or did you hold that back?
My office didn't spy on anyone.
Wait a second. The question I asked you, Mr. Smith, was pretty straightforward. Did you withhold that information from an Article III judge in the process of taking the records of the Speaker of the House?
We complied with department.
Did you hold back
Mr.
that
Chairman, would you
information?
please instruct the gentleman to allow the witness to answer the questions?
It's not your time. I'd like my time back.
Mr. Chairman,
again,
you have
please.
repeatedly done that in the past. The witness has the right to answer the question.
And there'll be due time to answer the question. Would you please put my time back and let me finish this? Mr. Smith, I asked you a question and you were not responsive to it, and I want you to be responsive to it. Did you, whether you think it was legal or not, whether you think it was right or not, did you withhold the name of Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House, when you were seeking records on Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, or Jim Jordan, the chairman of this committee?
At the time the gentleman is.
No,
is- you
please
got
give
a
me
few
back
more
the
seconds.
time that was taken
I-
away.
Time has expired, but we're going to let the witness answer your question because it's an important question. The witness can respond.
We did not provide that information to the judge when we requested a non-disclosure order, consistent with the law and consistent with department
Mr.
policy.
Chairman, the amazing thing here today is that we have an admission that an Article
Mr. Chairman,
one-
the gentleman's time has
come on.
expired by now 34 seconds.
It gets more than 5 minutes.
How many
'cause it's a
times you
good
can interrupt
question?
me?
The time belongs to the gentleman from California, but it has expired.
I will be brief in my address to the chairman. We have the evidence that an Article I representative on behalf of the president withheld
Order,
from
Mr.
Article
Chairman.
III.
Point
Mr. Chairman, our
that
witness granted the
information.
same leniency at
And
this
with that, I yield back in
yield
disgust of this witness.
Sticking with California, the gentlelady from California is now recognized.
Mr. Smith, thank you for being here today. Earlier the chairman spent a lot of time talking about Cassidy Hutchinson, who we know is just one of many witnesses. It's important to note that there was testimony that she was told something by Mr. Ornato, not that she had personal knowledge. And of course, Mr. Ornato was of very questionable veracity. We had a testimony from a Metropolitan Police Department official about an argument, a big argument that the president was having about going to the Capitol. And in fact, the vehicle was delayed going back to the Capitol while that argument occurred. But having said that, I want to focus on something my colleagues across the aisle seem to want to ignore. The fact that your investigation into President Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election was built on testimony from members of the Republican Party. In fact, last week, the New York Times published grand jury transcripts from Georgia that show the same pattern in Trump's Georgia criminal case. Georgia's Republican Attorney General Chris Carr testified that he told, quote, and this is a quote, "We're just not seeing the things that you are seeing." And the late Georgia House Speaker David Ralston, also a Republican, testified that Trump's fake elector scheme was, quote, "the craziest thing I've heard." And then there's Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the president's closest allies. In his secret grand jury testimony, Senator Graham told the jurors, quote, "I have told him more times than we can count that he fell short," unquote. And then he said this, quote, "If you told him Martians came and stole votes, he'd be inclined to believe it." Martians, that's from Senator Graham speaking under oath. So here's my question. Mr. Smith, in your deposition with this committee, you testified, and here's a quote, "Our case was built on, frankly, Republicans who put their allegiance to the country before the party." That the president's closest allies are telling him that his claims of election fraud are wrong. And so I'm just wondering, can you explain what you meant in your deposition, that it was Republicans who were putting their allegiance to their country ahead of their party?
Yes. There were witnesses who I felt would be very strong witnesses, including, for example, the Secretary of State in Georgia, who told Donald Trump the truth, told him things that he did not want to hear and put him on notice that what he was saying was false. These were people who knew how the elections were conducted in these states, and I believe that witnesses of that nature, witnesses who are willing to tell the truth, even if it's going to impose a cost on them in their lives, my experience as a prosecutor over 30 years is that witnesses like that are very credible, and that jurors tend to believe witnesses like that because they pay a cost for telling the truth.
In terms of the grand jury testimony that's now been released, the fact that Donald Trump, according to Senator Graham, would believe that Martians stole the election, what does that tell you about Trump's state of mind?
That statement is consistent with what we found in our investigation, in that our investigation revealed that Donald Trump was not looking for honest answers about whether there was fraud in the election. He was looking for ways to stay in power. And when people told him things that conflicted with him staying in power, he rejected them, or he chose not even to contact people like that who would know if the election was done properly in the state. On the other hand, when individuals would say things that would allow him to stay in power, no matter how fantastical, he would latch on to those. That pattern, over time, we felt was powerful evidence that he, in fact, knew that the fraud claims he was making were false.
You know, who are some of the Republican witnesses who told you that who told President Trump that his claims of election fraud were false? Can you share that with us?
There were a range of witnesses. They ranged from people on his campaign team who had wanted him to win, were employed to help him win the election. They included state officials, state Republican officials who wanted him to win, voted for him, campaigned for him, asked him and his co-conspirators to provide evidence to support their claims, and invariably they never did. It included officials, advisors, people he worked with in the White House who he relied upon for important decisions and who he trusted in other contexts. We felt we had strong evidence from a variety of sources.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
Ms. Chairman, with my fellow Californian, you were allowing the witness
Yeah, it's a
to
good
answer.
question. Isn't that grounds to let him answer?
I've given him 30 seconds extra, the gentlelady 30 seconds extra. If the gentleman can be concise and finish up here quickly, we will allow him to finish.
Yes, sir. And just conclude saying we felt that constituted powerful evidence of the knowing falsity of his statements in furtherance of the fraud.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to yield back, noting the presence of officers who were severely attacked.
Got nothing to yield back. You're a minute over. The gentleman from
Protecting
Texas.
our lives on January 6th.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gill, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, in January